This word, how do you pronounce this word? Crater, crater, or American crater. Cráter is crater. A trembler on Saturday, temblor, right? She said tremblor. I think in Spanish it's temblor. Maybe she wanted to say tremble, a trembling, right? You could call it a trembling. I think the more common word would be a quake. A quake is a small earthquake. Another word. That's another word. An earthquake really is what that refers to, right? If it's a temblor, it's a temblor de tierra, so it's an earthquake. I don't know if that was the case. Okay, some of these are just notes. That's fine. Thing is, some walls from the crater start to desparramarse, derrumbar. So the thing is, some walls, that's okay, some walls of the crater started, talking in the past, started to, I would say, fall down or fall in, right? If it caved in, or you could say to cave in. Some walls started to cave in. Cave is cueva, but as a verb, as a phrasal verb, to cave in means to come, fall inward to itself. So some walls of the crater started to fall down, fall in, or cave in. It takes you off guard. I think that's what she said, and I decided this would also be a good, maybe what she wanted to say, because off guard is a phrase, but we say to catch someone off guard. Catch someone off guard. It takes you off guard is not said. We say it takes you by surprise, or you catch someone off guard. I mean, we could say this, but we don't. So it takes you by surprise. It takes you off guard. Yeah, it catches you. Te pilla, catches you off guard. I'm not a deep sleeper. Right, I'm not a heavy sleeper. I'm not a heavy sleeper. Deep sleeper is okay, but usually when we refer to deep sleep, you are in deep sleep when you are no longer in REM, when you are no longer dreaming, when you're in deep, completely unconscious sleep. We call that deep sleep. It's understood. If you say I'm not a deep sleeper, it means you don't sleep, you don't get a lot of deep sleep. You wake up very easily. Usually we say I'm not a heavy sleeper, but I'm going to say that this is okay. Pronounce this word. It's a word that a lot of Spanish people have a problem with because they say manager, but it should be manager, manager. From January, when my boss left the company, I don't stop. Okay, since January, when my boss left the company, I haven't stopped. Because we're talking about a point in the past, continuing until the present. That is presente perfecto. That's when we want to use presente perfecto. Since January, when my boss left the company, I haven't stopped. And not from January, since desde. Hacer recados, to run errands. That's a good phrase, to run errands. To run errands, hacer recados. They put a needle in the area who is pain. I forget exactly what we were talking about. Maybe acupuncture? I don't know. They put a needle in the area that was painful. If I have a tiny free time, if I have a little free time, because we would have to say if I have a tiny bit of free time. Time is an uncountable thing, so you wouldn't use an article, a free time, or a tiny free time. We would say, if I have a tiny bit of free time, if I have a little bit of free time, if I have a little free time, if I have a little free time, a little free time. Now, in this case, un poco de free time. That's what it's understood. If you say I have a little free time, it's understood un poco de tiempo libre. Un poco. Really, the article here is poco de, right? A little of free time. So the article refers to little, not to free time, I think. A little of free time, really. If I have a little of free time, it's interesting because you could not say if I have a free time. If you're talking about tiempo libre, you can't say if I have a free time. Igual que en español no dirías si tengo un tiempo libre. Bueno, un rato libre, un tiempecillo, sí, un tiempo libre. If I have a little free time, if I have a time, you wouldn't say si tengo tiempo. Si tengo un tiempo, you say si tengo tiempo. So no tienes un tiempo libre, tienes tiempo libre, right? So if I have free time is how you would say that. But if you want to put little in there, if I have a little free time, I think we do that because if you said if I have little free time, that would mean tengo poco tiempo libre. Tengo poco tiempo libre. But if you say, I have a little, es un poco de, a little of free time. But we don't say the of. That's a little bit confusing there. But yeah, this is probably the best way to say it. But you could say this too, if I have a little bit of free time, or if I have a tiny bit of free time. But you see how a little bit of free time, the bit kind of solidifies that little here is actually a sustantivo, not, it's strange, but I think this is a sustantivo here. It's not an adjective. Little usually, almost always, is an adjective. But in this case, I think it is you know what, let's ask ChatGPT. What part of speech is little in the sentence, I have a little free time? In this case, little is describing the amount or quantity of free time that the speaker has. Quantity or a large quantity of, and that's why I maintain that a little is really a noun, a quantity of something. Because we're not talking about time that is little. We're talking about a small quantity of time. In the end, if I have a tiny bit of free time, if I have a little bit of free time, if I have a little free time. And you would not say if I have a little of free time. But you would say if I have a lot of free time. Go figure. Simulacro, drill. To make a person not to move his body and then to lift this person with the most careful movement and not aggravate the injuries. She might have been talking about an earthquake drill where she had to do this. So to make a person not to move. Make, remember, is a verb where the second verb after it, if there is one, does not need an infinitive. You make a person move or you make a person not move. But not to move, no. So to make a person not move his body, and then to make is fine, and to lift, right? That's what that to is referring to. To make a person not move his body, and then to lift this person with the most careful movement. That's all good. But I would change this. To make a person not move his body, I would say to make a person stay still. Stay still or stay immobile. To make a person stay still, and then to lift this person with the most careful, that's fine, with the most careful movement. Or you could say or to lift this person carefully, but with the most careful movement is fine too. And not aggravate the injuries, that's perfectly fine too. Hinder, the opposite is help. To help or to hinder. This might not be a verb that you're familiar with. It looks German, hinder. It just means to damage or make worse. Don't be ridiculous and put a leash on your cat. Oh, this is something that she said to somebody. Don't be ridiculous and put a leash on your cat. I think she might have said, don't be ridiculous putting a leash on your cat. Don't be ridiculous. I mean, you could also say, don't be ridiculous by putting a leash on your cat. Don't be ridiculous. But we do often say it like this. Don't be ridiculous and go and do that thing. Even though really these are synonymous. To be ridiculous is to put a leash on your cat. So it sounds like you're doing two things, but really this second and is just saying, I don't know how you would say it in Spanish. I don't know if you would say, no seas ridículo y vas. No, o sea, no seas ridículo y le digas eso, o y le dices eso. I don't know if, no seas ridícula diciéndole eso. No seas ridículo y le dices eso, y le digas eso. I'm not exactly sure how you would say it in Spanish, but you can say this in English. Don't be ridiculous and then describe what you're doing to be ridiculous. Or you could say, don't be ridiculous by putting a leash on your cat. The difference between good with and good at. You are good at, for example, guessing distances. To be good at something is when you are good at some kind of action, some kind of verb. So you could say, I'm not good at guessing distances, or I'm not good with distances.